Hello, and this is my YouTube playlist for how to do the Photoshop for Web Design first assignment, which is basically editing the same picture 6 times with 6 different tools. Alright, let's start. Here we are in the Google Classroom. It talks about the directions. You're going to be editing 6 total, and you're going to save them all with your last name and the name of the technique. It's for a total of 100 points, and you have to make sure that it is saved in the right place on the computer so that Ms. V can actually open it and give you a grade. First thing you need to do is start with the bumblebee. So if you click on this bumblebee, over in the corner there's these 3 dots. When you click on those 3 dots, you can choose open in a new window, and now you have the option to download it. Alright, now that we've downloaded it, it's time to begin in Photoshop. So here I am in Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and open the bumblebee, and I will find it. For me, it's in my downloads. I got a lot of downloads. For you, it'll be in your J drive down here, the one that has your ID number, and then my downloads. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and open the bumblebee. We're starting with the very first one, which in this Google Doc says 6 background masking techniques in Photoshop, and the very first one is the magic eraser technique. So the first thing you have to do is save it. Go to File and Save As. You need to find the S drive, Student Shared, Dropbox. See S drive, Student Shared, Dropbox, all the way down to Web Design. The Photoshop folder, and then find your folder. This is all in writing on the handout, and there's a sticker on the side of every computer that shows you how to get to this web design folder on the S drive. Okay, but we don't want to save it as Bumblebee. You're going to save it as your last name. And the very first technique is Magic Eraser. So that's what I'm going to save it in my folder. And I want to make it a Photoshop file, so I'm going to change this save as type to Photoshop, and then I'm going to say save. So that's the first step. Now we have to actually do the editing. In the assignment, it tells us to use the Magic Eraser tool. Hold down the eraser icon on the toolbar to access it, and that will allow you to erase pixels that are all the same color or a similar color. Because we want it to erase the whites and the grays in the background, we have to change some of the tool settings. By increasing the tolerance, the Magic Eraser tool will erase similar colors, so whites and grays. And by checking the contiguous box, it will only grab pixels that are next to each other, so we won't accidentally erase the bee's eyes that way. So let's go into Photoshop, and the first thing we need to do is look for the Magic Eraser tool. Here's Photoshop. There's tons of tools along the side. If you're not sure, you can just hold your mouse over it and it will load. So here's the eraser tool, and there's the Magic Eraser tool. Now at the top, we have a button here for contiguous. And the tolerance, we need to increase the tolerance. What did it say we need to increase the tolerance to? It doesn't say yet. Aha! Increase the tolerance to 72. Okay, so we're going to go up here and we're going to increase it to 72. So again, I have the contiguous box checked. My tolerance is set to 72. And I made sure that I'm on the Magic Eraser, not any of these other erasers. And now when I click around the bee, it gets rid of just about everything. There's still a little bit of stuff in there around its little legs and head that I need to clean up still. Let's see what the directions tell us to do next. Alright, it says the tolerance is too high. You might have accidentally grabbed some of the object, but that's okay. We're fine. Ours looks just like the example. So now we have to change the tolerance back to 32 and keep using that Magic Eraser tool to get rid of some of the gray shadow areas. And so it shows how that kind of got a little better here. Unfortunately, some of the shadows are so dark that trying to use the Magic Eraser would end up erasing some of the black parts of the bee as well. So now we're going to switch over to the normal eraser tool. We're going to set it to brush mode. So here's the eraser. I'm going to put it on a regular eraser tool. And then up here at the top is where we can adjust the brush mode. and the size of the brush. So this is pretty big. This is 36 pixels is too big for me to get in that tiny little spot. So I'm going to need it to be smaller. That looks pretty good. Now I can't really see very well in there, so I'm going to go to the magnifying glass and I'm going to click in on my Photoshop file so it's really zoomed in. Now I can go back to the eraser and kind of gently go in and clean up around the edges a little bit. So I got that pretty good. I'm going to leave a couple specks there just to show you something in a second, but your assignment is to really actually do this, cleaning up that background so it's just the bee. Alright, so now that we have the bee, we're almost ready to finish. We need to add a background layer and a drop shadow. So we go up here to layer and choose new layer and say OK. And now you can see over in the corner I now have the layer with the bee and then the blank layer. So I'm going to drag this down to the bottom. I'm going to click on the bumblebee layer. If I go to this little effects tool, I'm on the bumblebee layer and I click effects and drop shadow. And then I get this pop-up menu here. And this lets me adjust like how far out the shadow comes out from the bee. So if you don't see your shadow showing up, kind of adjust that and make sure you're on the bee layer. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I'm on the background layer and it's time to add a color. So I have to find my paint bucket tool. Sometimes it's under the gradient, so you have to hold down. It's called a hard press. So you find the paint bucket tool. I'm going to go ahead and pick this lavender color, and can't really see, but there's my layer. It says gray, so I'm on this layer and I paint it. And now with the background color and the drop shadow, I can see that I actually missed a few spots on my bee. And that's the whole point of adding the background layer and the drop shadow, is so that you can see what you've missed. And so I'm going to grab my eraser tool one more time, make sure that I am on the bee layer, and I'm going to delete this little extra stuff right here to clean it up. And you can see how that makes my shadow kind of go away too on that corner. So if you have missed a spot on your bee, your shadow will look weird. And that's all you got to do for the very first one. Once you've added the background layer, the drop shadow, and cleaned up the bee, you are done with the very first one, the magic eraser. And the last step is to make sure that you go to File and Save, so that your Magic Eraser Photoshop file is saved correctly in the right spot and you don't lose credit for your work.